Jeffrey McCluskey's 10 Pillars, or my campaign platform, in the bid to be mayor of Moncton NB 2026. My core beliefs in dealing with Moncton's crisis points are wrapped around the fact that if you only attempt to deal with what Moncton is experiencing by putting more police on the streets, they'll never solve the root causes. Or if you only elect a mayor or councilors that have stood in the past with a desire to only maintain the status quo, or conduct studies, evaluations, or fake promises, when many of those are out of their powers and scope as mayor. Well, that is what you'll get. But I'll address this further at the end of my statements concerning my pillars on my campaign platform found herein. Anyhow, let's proceed with this verbal text version of this video. Pillar 1. Root cause, public safety. The social safety net. Core message. Safety begins with home stability. The action. Implement a $35,000 household hardship clause for water and sewer and a permanent ban on residential water shutoffs to help prevent the possible next wave of homelessness before it starts, but also the hygiene and life necessities-related concerns that all humans require. Also eliminate all taxes and interest rates upon all those water and sewer bills, regardless of household incomes. In other words, all households in Greater Moncton will be exempt from paying taxes and interest rates on water and sewer. And also eliminate the need for any not-for-profit organizations dealing with poverty and the prevention of such from the need to pay said water and sewer bills, exemption clause, thereby granting them a substantial set of funds better directed to their operational goals. Organizations like the House of Nazareth, Harvest House, Humanity Project, as well as the others. Rent reductions by exemption clause. Devise a plan to enable large housing complex landlords to be able to reduce their overall rents by signing an agreement with the city that in order to be exempt from paying for water and sewer, that they reduce their rents based on their past water and sewer consumptions and bills. In other words, when they divide their over-yearly bill for such and reduce their rents based upon that prior water and sewer bills, they will not be required to pay for said water and sewer, to be determined later by the new city council. Pillar 2. Root cause, public safety. Homeless housing, addiction services, and necessity-based attributes. Core message. True public safety begins with properly addressing our homeless peoples, or citizens, while truly listening and acting on their concerns, not just policing our streets. For we should all know that the homeless are not the only causes of the crime in Moncton, but they do make up the larger percentage of petty crimes and property damages. The action. Focus first on helping those without addictions and creating very low-income housing family-orientated dwellings and included social and life skills guidance programs to better adhere and guide them in their living conditions, and developing a proper manner of dealing with those remaining addicts, very similar to those that we advocated for and used during my time with Christian home centers all those many years ago. In fact, listen closely to that term, or title, and clue in. From restorative justice in our court systems, which just came into effect, to proper medical facilities and assistance in shaking off those negative societal destructive habits, while working with those other authorities, such as our provincial counterparts, medical institutions, and so many more, but also by stating it straightforward to all of our homeless, the way it is, not the ways they want it to be. For if it continues, there will be no services in the future for any of them to rely upon, or possibly worse, like what's transpiring in the United States. Although that's more hearsay than it is fact as of yet. But it's still concerning, and it should be. For you can't just take people's freedom away or box them all away in an industrial complex far from St. George Street, just because you don't want to see them on our streets any longer. Pillar 3. Regional water and environmental justice. Core message. Moncton's residents deserve the same, if not equal treatment as their neighbors, as it relates to water. The action. end water consumption-based billing inequality between the tri-communities, and officially quarantine the historical PCB and toxic landfill sites along the Pettit-Kodiak riverbanks that the career politicians have ignored for decades, while exploring other possible clean drinkable water sources for Moncton's future growing needs, truly creating a substantial amount of local jobs. For just the quarantining of those old riverside toxic dumps will take several years to properly deal with. Pillar 4. Democratic reform, fairness in voting. Core message. City Hall belongs to the people, not the highest bidder, or federal and provincial political parties, or any unions, committees, or large corporations that think they are in control. The action. Establish a $10,000 to $15,000 candidate/campaign spending cap for all future City of Moncton municipal races, regardless of what elections NB does or thinks, by also making all future municipal elections about merit-based experiences. And let's elaborate a bit on that in this example. It's time to ensure that lived experience, like my 7 years managing Moncton's first homeless shelter before the House of Nazareth or the Karen Kitchen existed, as well as all the other not-for-profit endeavors that I've been involved with, or such types of volunteerisms by whomever, matters more than a large advertising budget. In other words, merit-based community service attributes, while standing as a councillor or prior mayor matters not. For those paid positions are created by residents' taxpayers and should not be counted. In other words, show us what you volunteer to achieve for your community, not what you've been paid to do, while failing in such. Pillar 5. City operational managements and waste reductions. Core message. Reduce useless city expenditures, thereby reducing the need to increase property taxation. Just another form of poverty prevention, while giving our citizens a real say in major projects that will certainly affect their property tax base. The action. By focusing on core city needs, such as year-round road maintenance, with limited pothole quick fixes in early spring before the major road maintenance repair contracts are signed, thereby also reducing any possible injuries from such that the long-term drivers of our city transport services may have to endure. Just another series of workplace injury scenarios or work-safe NB issues that we need to avoid. Plus, better, cleaner, more sanitary garbage collections, for we've all witnessed how sometimes our garbage collections contractors and employees have broken our garbage bags during their pickups and have not cleaned up their mess, just left that upon the street. But also including the return of spring cleanup week, thereby helping in reducing the rodent population within our city and assisting with possible health concerns brought on by such. For the rodent issue has increased since the City of Moncton stopped spring cleanup. And also focusing on future policing and firefighters' needs, with the adoptions of true electric vehicle fire suppression tools, such as the Eco Guards organizations, snuffers units, or any other required functional tools that would truly aid in their duties to protect all our citizens, while also helping in the protection of all our other environmental factors, including the required water usage. Let's elaborate a bit on helping our police achieve their jobs. Work with provincial authorities and policing services in having or installing automated high-speed digital camera systems around school zones that would capture images of vehicles that speed in those zones during school hours to be reviewed by our policing systems for possible fines, thereby giving all citizens only one opportunity to slow down by also posting that fact in plain daylight. But again, it requires more funding, but surely less than hiring a much greater number of police officers, for those positions need not be that expensive, at least not to the extent of a regular officer's pay rate. And let's be clear about this fact, I've been heavily involved with a great many of those types of protective device creations since the late 1980s. From smoke detectors with hush or reset buttons, to protective armored suits for our policing services, to even the creation of taser guns. For I was inventing those long before they came into being by other unscrupulous companies that just love to steal other people's IPs. So you could say, I'm a solution specialist, and I still have a great many solutions that could even contribute to helping others, like one of my future goals in front porch parcel theft solutions that are set to be known soon. Pillar 6. Practical and advanced transportation, safety, and infrastructures. Core message. Better adhere to the principles of the road defined by the NB driver's testing protocols. The action. Have municipal policing services better conduct those attributes and public adherence of such, and have municipal policing services conduct road safety programs and surveys of such, while also increasing fines for those found to be in noncompliance, while also conducting municipal broadcasting of public safety messaging as to the facts that pedestrian and bicyclist have the right of way over any motorized vehicle, and any violation leading to serious injury or deaths for any reason will be strictly investigated by our municipal policing services and monitored by the courts, as well as being reported back to the overall family members as to the factual cause. But on the other hand, pedestrian and non-motorized bicyclists also have a duty to conduct themselves with the same manners found in those same principles of the road. For a great many of them, even those from the Active Transportation Coalition, have also been found to be lacking. Pillar 7. Municipal waste and taxation. Core message. Again, reduce useless city expenditures and exemplify the many better forms of achieving the many overall goals required to not only maintain, but better serve all citizens. The action. Create several think tanks and action-based initiatives through Moncton's Public Works, Recreational Park Services to better address any unforeseen or problematic issues, and pay performance bonuses to those individuals that supply goes used in useful solutions. Also invite the public/citizens to participate in those think tank efforts on a quarter-annual basis, but also support and acknowledge the many other groups that conduct all the many cleanup efforts and other not-for-profit efforts in the greater Moncton area. Pillar 8. Personal self-defense and property rights. Core message. Situational awareness is the key to all forms of self-defense, and anyone living in the city has not only a right to conduct such, but should do so in any situation leading to physical abuse. Moreover, restraint is also a part of that, for no citizen has the right to unduly act in a manner that causes great physical harm, regardless if the other person started it. But property rights also plays a great role in that as well. For every homeowner or property owner has the right to defend their property from undue damages, theft, or any other form of unjust act that leads to such. The action. Enact a City of Moncton-led personal self-defense series of ongoing classes and seminars with expressly and uniquely experienced qualified trainers, with an emphasis on teaching personal space boundaries to those that are not aware or choose to not acknowledge, by also indicating to those that choose to adhere to such of the person's right to not only defend themselves against any person that violates such, but your obligation to defend yourself from unwanted advancements or attack, and that also applies to the protection of one's property or dwelling. Forecastle law is your right, but does fall under Criminal Code Provisions Section 34 and 35 of the law. Pillar 9. Child exploitations versus runaways. Core message. Besides the parents' duties to truly protect their offspring, the City of Moncton also has an obligation in the protection of our small young citizens. The action. In preventing child exploitations and proper, very timely information conveyance in all matters related to possible child abduction or teenage runaway scenarios, but to also assure the safety of our most vulnerable citizens, whether by working in conjunction with our policing services or with any group home, foster homes, or daycare services, but also in the issuance of timely Amber Alerts when properly needed. The speed of accurate information is beyond essential, and a complete evaluation and possible revision of performance standards is a must that should be truly evaluated on a constant basis at about every 6-month period, and should include all City of Moncton staff's observational requirements. Pillar 10. Future city needs versus unwarranted expenditures. Core message. As the City of Moncton continues to grow and expand, a standing committee on a great many possible solutions needs to be enacted while also truly exploring our community's needs for a different manner of policing our streets. The action. Develop the true working orders and complete requirements for a possible tri-community police service, with an emphasis on policing within our city and town limits only. Whereas, the 3 elected mayors of Moncton, Riverview, and Dieppe will need to work together as we seek the public consultations of such a policing service, but also in conjunction with the RCMP, for even they were present within Moncton long ago, when the Moncton police force existed, and have the emphasis on a true community-based policing system, not governed by only federal policies and statutes or provincial requirements, but truly here for all the citizens and small businesses of the tri-community, with a certainty built into all those requirements that all candidates that will serve in such will have graduated through a proper series of trainings and evaluation of all policing standards. In other words, we are not going to be arming by law enforcement officers with handguns, for they are neither properly trained or cognitively able to deal with any real circumstances that may arise. Now, that you've clearly heard the majority of my pillars of my campaign platform, and you also know that I don't look at things with a singular way or approach, for all these pillars are part of the overall manners that any future mayor needs to first address as to what's taking place in Moncton and even in the surrounding areas. But it's not just these core pillars, for there is much housekeeping that transpires, and those are just part of all mayors' duties, and should really not be placed in their campaign platforms. And after viewing my opponent's campaign platforms, my God, I'm disappointed, and I truly believe that I've been beyond trained for this time, so that I may truly help all our citizens and small businesses, not just the homeless. For I've experienced far more than just running Moncton's first homeless shelter in the late 1970s and early 1980s, as I also helped in the formation of several other well-known not-for-profit organizations in Moncton, such as Sister Rita's House of Nazareth, the Caring Kitchen, Ego's Christmas Toys, to the Eco-Text Division where we supplied computer learning systems to many of Moncton's less fortunate, and really so many more, whether they still exist or not, mostly without government support or funding. Plus, I've also run several small businesses and even managed a few over those years, and even experienced the other service industries, such as taxicab driving, Ford Trias, and white cabs. So I have a good handle on what many of those people go through. I've also been the lead advocate for environmental justice in this city, going back just as far, really about 5 years further, than my work at the CHC, actually right around the time that Greenpeace came into existence. Anyhow, I've quietly worked within the systems for over 4 decades, never really wanting the so-called glory or attention that some of my works could have warranted. But now, when I witness what Moncton's peoples are going through and the extent of true ineptitudes on the part of all the old candidates that have allowed this city to fall from its hard-earned rejuvenations, like when the CNR shops closed, to the loss of our CFB Moncton supply base, that took a great resilient people some time to overcome and rise again. I'm not about to just leave this place in the manner that it is. I'll stay and fight for all of you so that we may have a really bright, freedom-filled future full of prosperity that you've all worked to achieve. And in closing, I can be an inspiration to all those that have lost hope and hopefully help them stand again as they journey to better lives. For I've experienced homelessness firsthand, and even lived through all that, as I worked hard to gain an education, as I also overcame the addictions I once had that I left behind in 1993. With that now said, I can work with anyone, as long as they accept me as I am, and don't try to bend me to your will. For I'm quite the extrovert, but with a different manner of viewing all the things that humanity has to endure at the hands of a great many corporate political types. So I ask you, on May 2nd and 4th in the early voting days, and especially on May 11th, 2026, that you get out to vote and elect me, Jeffrey McCluskey, to be your next mayor of Moncton. And let's bring back the spirit of our place, the hub city that comes back from the brink and never gives up. For our city motto is Resurgo, which stands for Rise Again. Truthfully, Jeffrey McCluskey for Mayor of Moncton, NB 2026.